And our final guest, and I will take questions at the end. So Suzie is mum and currently on parental leave, and she has baby Joshua here, who, is he sound asleep, is he?
He is providing more of a soundtrack at the moment. He is not even remotely sound asleep.
Oh, he's over there. Well, he's welcome to come up on stage.
I think I will be better able to answer questions if he remains in the corner.
Fair enough.
Thank you, Justin and Cody.
So, Suzie, you've had an incredible year, really. Lots has happened. In addition to having a baby, you were named Boss Magazine's Young Executive of the Year. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Tell us about that experience and those photos of you being heavily pregnant, which I love.
It was a fantastic experience. It was something I was encouraged to apply for by a couple of colleagues as well as my husband. And it's a competition run by AFR for young executives. You submit an application that needs to be endorsed by your CEO. So I had a really great conversation with my CEO at the time. I was about 6 months pregnant, and I said, I'd really like to go for this. Would you endorse me for it? And he said, absolutely, I think you're going to win, which was a wonderful conversation to have. And you put in an application, and then I was shortlisted in the final 10, and they do this CEO simulation day, where you go in and you have to deal with ethical dilemmas and coach an employee and write a whole lot of emails and do a strategy presentation. And I was sort of having conversations on the side about, dietary requirements for pregnant ladies, and I couldn't be on my feet for that long because by this point I was about 7.5, 8 months pregnant. And they were wonderful and accommodating, and I think everyone was a little bit surprised to have a very pregnant lady in the mix. But most of the people in the competition were really accommodating and wonderful. The judges surprised me a little bit because the first question they asked me in the interview was, how have your aspirations changed since becoming a parent? And I, bit back my response, which was, how did all the men answer that question? Because most of the men who were shortlisted were also parents, and I really strongly felt that they would not have been asked that question, and I was only being asked because I was a woman and clearly pregnant. So despite having that rocky start to the questions, it went really well. I thoroughly enjoyed the experience of the simulation. It was super, super rich lessons that they gave you back in terms of feedback. And I then had a lunch as one of the winners, which I took my chairman of the board to. And that was such a brilliant experience for me to be able to go with my chairman to a lunch with the editor of AFR and all of these phenomenal judges. It was really rewarding and has given me a great platform to talk about professional development with my boss. As we look forward, this is the feedback that I got, these are the things they said I was great at, these are the things I'd like to work on, and that's what we'll work on together when I return.
Now, Joshua's your second baby.
Yes.
Both parental leave experiences with Social Ventures Australia.
That's right.
Tell us about the first.
So the first time, I got pregnant during a CEO transition. And so I was in the first trimester with a brand new boss. I don't know if anyone can relate to that, but it's really intimidating. And I didn't really know him, and I didn't have a great relationship with him yet, and I was, in my own mind, underperforming because I felt sick all the time and I was getting to work late, and I thought, God, what does he think of me? And I assumed it would all just work out fine. Social Ventures is an incredibly flexible organisation. I had a lot of people who I knew who were working flexibly because of parents, because they were looking after a business, because of a whole lot of reasons. And I thought, yeah, destination is sorted, it'll be fine. The walls came crumbling down in terms of the actual conversations that I was having with people and how I was going to do it. So when I told my new CEO, great news, exciting for me and my husband, I'm pregnant, he was pleasantly surprised, I think, and polite. And during those early weeks, my team was being restructured in the organisation. So I was an executive director whose team was about to disappear. So I was really, really concerned that it would be quite convenient for them if I went away on parental leave and just didn't come back. And I'm sure there's many women and men who've been in the position of wondering, does that make me redundant? Am I redundant if I go away and choose not to come back? And so I had a very teary Christmas where I spent a lot of time with family and friends thinking, They don't really want me. I thought this is where my career was. I'm really excited and passionate about this organisation, but it's just not going to work. And this despite the fact that this new CEO brought in paid parental leave for the very first time after hearing that me and another one of my colleagues were pregnant. So from his perspective and a number of my colleagues' perspective, they were communicating really positive things. We're really flexible. We're putting in place parental leave that's paid for the first time. We're going to go with whatever you want. But I wasn't hearing those things, and we weren't having an authentic conversation about what I wanted. I didn't even know what I wanted. I just thought I should be kind of counting my blessings because I was going to get paid when I hadn't planned on that, and because I didn't work in a terrible industry that some of my friends work in where they get really, really blatant discrimination. So I found the whole thing very, very upsetting, and I was quite turned kind of topsy-turvy. So I came back after Christmas and had a really bold conversation with my boss where I said, I don't think I've made myself clear. I really want to return. I really want to return as an executive director. I'm super excited about this organisation. Here's what I want to work on. And he went, what do you mean? Of course you want to return. I want you back, and here's this exciting new team that I think that you're going to lead, and this is the restructuring that I've been thinking about over Christmas, and this, that, and the next thing. And all it took was the conversation, but I hadn't had the conversation, and he hadn't had the conversation. So it did work out really well, but only after several months of angst. And frankly, I was already at the point where I was asking people for advice about how do you job hunt with a baby, because that's what I was doing.
And second time round?
Totally different experience in a really positive way. So in the interim period, I had heard about Grace Papers, and I had put the case to my colleagues and to our board to introduce the enterprise program for all of the SVA employees, which our board and our executive team loved. In particular, the defining thing for us was that it was available for dads as well and not just for mums. And so I used the program. And so I was sitting there filling out all the things and watching all the TED Talks, and for those of you who've done it, it's a thing that's hard to find time for but really rewarding to do. And so I had my career vision, and I had a totally different experience when I announced to my CEO and to my colleagues about how positive this was going to be for me and for my team and for my colleagues. And I put in place a bunch of things that were different. The first time I went on parental leave, nobody covered my role. We just kind of all put our heads in the sand and said, oh, it'll be fine, you'll be back before we know it. And some of my team members are here and they'll attest to the fact that that was a really shit way of going on parental leave. Not ideal for anyone. So this time we've got someone who's doing the role, which is great. I've had, I think, many more conversations about what matters to me while I'm on leave. So one of the things that happened the first time is everyone sort of sent flowers and said congratulations when baby Daniel was born, and then I didn't hear from anyone for about 3 months, which got me thinking again, maybe they don't really want me back. Meanwhile, they're all just saying, oh, you're in a new baby phase, we don't want to get in the way, we're just leaving you to do your own thing. I think the hormones kind of put this lens on you, perhaps as a new parent, where you think, oh no, it must be all about them not needing me. So this time I was better about saying, this is the level of connection that I want, this is who I want to be in communication with, this is what I want to be kept in the loop about. You know, I did things like forward on all the all-staff emails to my Gmail account, so I get all the announcements about new staff and about people leaving and about great funding and things like that, feel a little bit connected. I've taken in baby Joshua to come and meet the team in Sydney a couple of times. I took him in yesterday to meet everyone in Melbourne. And those things have made a big difference. But I didn't realise that they would the first time, so I feel a lot more in control of what matters to me the second time.
You said to me at one stage that you'd had a lot more bold conversations with your CEO. What did that mean?
It meant not letting us pass the buck till when I was going to come back. So when I said I'm excited about working here, I'm definitely returning, and here's what I would like to do in terms of my professional development, the first time those conversations would sort of end there. And this time I said, I'd really like to know what those options might look like. Even though we have to wait until I return, and obviously I'm going to be flexible and you're going to be flexible, can we put together a picture of what they might be? And that will get your brain juices flowing, and it will make me feel more confident that there is something to return to. So pushing to the next level was really important, as well as giving more examples of people that I know outside of my organisation who are doing things differently, to say, here's some suggestions. this is what I've heard works here, or someone tried this, what do you think about that here? But the role that he did get was a new role in an organisation where the boss that he ended up working for said, I've currently got 0 days, 4 days would be amazing. And he's loving it. His team respect his day that he's at home with the kids, and he has a wonderful relationship with our boys, and it's working really well. At the same time as doing that, we came across this great worksheet that someone at work showed me, which is to do with the mental load, which lists loads and loads of things that people have to do as parents. And you kind of look at who does those. Do we share them? Does one person do them only? Do we do them more often? And that was a really good way about having a conversation about what was going to change now that he was going to go to 4 days. And it includes things like who figures out which IT provider provides the internet, as well as who wraps the Christmas presents, and who books the family holiday, and who figures out that the baby's grown out of the next size of clothes and that you need to put them all in the space bags and blah, blah, blah. And those kind of conversations mean that I feel much more confident saying that we are co-parenting, and he's loving it, although it's still a needle in the haystack. I think that the men are the pioneers. So he works in an organisation of 500 people, and he is the only man working part-time, with dozens and dozens of women working part-time. But he's one below their executive team, and I think it's a great role model to have a senior man doing that as well.
Yeah. Oh, he stopped just as I was going to wrap you up and let you go to that, your little baby. What does your professional vision look like now?
I aspire to be a CEO of an organisation in the social purpose sector and to work towards reducing disadvantage in Australia.
What are your limiting beliefs and how are you going to overcome them?
I am definitely limited by feeling like an imposter and things where I assume that you need to have skill in an area before you can provide leadership to people who have those technical capabilities. So that's one of those things that I'm still working on, that you can actually empower others to do what they do really well. You don't need to know how to do their job to be able to lead them. And that's a very different mindset to where I first started in my career as a management consultant, where everyone above you can do your job. It's a very master-apprentice model. Similarly in legal and architecture and medicine, you know, the more senior you are, the more of the jobs in the pyramid you can do. That's nothing like a general management capability set. So that's one of them. And having that CEO simulation day and a whole lot of concrete feedback about things that I need to work on is a really good way for me to have something specific to talk to my CEO and board about. These are the things that I really want to learn. And that's an example of part of the bold conversations that I've had, is these are the areas that I would like to learn. How can we do that, if not in 2018, over the next sort of 3 to 5 years?
In conclusion, what's your advice for parents navigating parental leave? What would be your biggest tip for them?
I think assuming that the people who are in your organisation who are already doing it is kind of going to automatically happen to you was one of my biggest mistakes, that I thought that people who had already established a way of working flexibly meant that I could get there really easily. It wasn't easy. I needed to have the conversations myself, and I needed to practice them with people, and I needed to keep having them. So that was part of my big lesson. So I would really encourage people who are going through it themselves, or whose partners or friends are going through it, you do need to do it for yourself. And it's great if there are role models and examples in your organisation, but you still need to do it yourself. And the other piece is that I really truly believe that people can do phenomenal things without having to work this artificial concept of 100%. 100% if you're a small business owner running your own thing is 6.5 days a week. 100% if you're an athlete looks very different than 100% if you're a radio talk show host. And like this, it's a very strange model that we've come up with that says what 100% is. You give 100% of what you're deciding to give and do your best at that. And I have had so much positive feedback since going part-time about the things that I've improved at, because I now have constraints that I didn't have before. And I think that's not talked about enough. So be excited about the things that are going to be great when you return to work in some kind of different capacity. Even if you're working full-time, it might be different full-time. Because things can be easier and better and more rewarding, if not only harder.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Suzie. Really incredible insights, and I think lots of learning for everybody. We've got a couple of minutes left.
Can you share your mental load checklist?
I'll send it to Prue.
We will publish it. Great. Thank you. In closing, thank you all very, very much for joining us today, and thank you in particular to our special guests, Jodie, Adam and Suzie, for your really incredible insights. Thinking about super, I hope lots of you go back and have bold conversations with your employers about super and share what Viva Energy is doing. I hope lots of you go home and have really bold conversations with your partners around working part-time, around taking parental leave, and challenging them to learn more about, how Adam has managed to navigate such a successful career in a part-time capacity. And Suzie, thank you. I think you gave lots and lots of tips as somebody who is right in the parental leave moment around having, again, bold conversations. And a lot of that is exactly what we're about at Grace Papers, is really reimagining what it means to be a working parent, because it is 2017 and we don't need to do it the way that our parents did it. We can reimagine possibilities that lead to closing the retirement gap for women, closing the gender pay gap, which I know EY is doing a phenomenal job as well at the moment, and sharing the care, because we do know that men want to participate more in the home life as well, and in sharing those caring responsibilities. And I really just want to close by sharing this beautiful reflection by a palliative care nurse who shares the 5 regrets of the dying. And the first one is, I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. I wish I didn't work so hard. I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings. I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends. And I wish that I had let myself be happier. And I think that by having bold conversations and indeed juggling career and care, we are far less likely to have regrets when we're at the other end of our life. And so I encourage all of you to reflect on that and do more of what you want to do. And as always, we are here supporting you as part of your community. So thank you again for coming. Please take cupcakes for afternoon tea if you need to for children. And yeah, we'll look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye.